We're just a few days away from Cactus League games starting, and we're going to talk about today Ty France and his possible bounce back season and what he's looking like coming out of Driveline, as well as some of the news and notes that we're hearing about spring training down in Peoria. We're going to finish it up by talking about Jerry DePoto's radio spot, I guess, over on KJR, where he talked about adding more free agents. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 63 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Jesus Montero episode of the Hit It Here podcast. Joe, I know that you're a big Jesus Montero fan. Tell me about it.
I gave a pretty resounding nod there. Pretty resounding nod is how I would describe my reaction to Jesus Montero getting name dropped on the pod. It's exciting. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Jesus Montero fan out there, but I enjoyed me some Jesus Montero back in the day. We're good. And seeing Ty France, I think the good news coming out of spring training so far about Ty France's offseason, you can bet on a Ty France bounce back in 2024. But quickly, a word from Bet Online.
The Super Bowl is done and dusted, but you know who's not done and dusted? Bet Online. And with the MLB season coming next, and all baseball fans can rejoice because the Super Bowl is done. That means it's baseball season. We've got next. And Bet Online has you covered all season long, even before the season starts. And say you're, wanting to continue to place some bets until the MLB season really kicks into gear. The NBA and NHL are right there readily available for you, and BetOnline has the best up-to-date news, odds, trends, and predictions for all your betting needs, and they've got you covered with desktop access and mobile access as well. With that being said, with the MLB season rolling around, the Mariners looking like they're in pretty good shot to make a run at this thing. And with how the odds are set up right now, it might not be a bad idea to maybe make a cheeky little bet for the World Series. I've got some good faith that BetOnline has us covered all season long and that the Mariners will do us some justice this year as well. BetOnline. The game starts here.
Going back to the 2022 offseason where JP Crawford was there, the big question mark for JP was how is he going to grow as a player in 2023? And at Driveline, they were targeting his mechanics, attacking the ball earlier and increasing his bat speed. And from Kyle Colton Bodie, not Body, there was a post back in September of 2023 talking about what they wanted to work on with JP at Driveline. And in that post is on Twitter, said that if they increased his bat speed by 2 miles per hour, everything would just jump off the page. Everything else would just kind of fall in line. And JP in 2023 did increase his bat speed by about 2 miles per hour. Ty France, it's been said that he's already up 3.5 miles per hour. Of course, the swings, the paths, all the mechanics are a bit different. There was a video that I think Divish posted of Ty in the cage, kind of showing off his mechanics. The little bat wiggle, the little circle thing that he was doing seems to be a little bit either just gone completely or very much so muted, like not nearly as prevalent in his load. It looks like his mechanics are, tightened up quite a good bit. And that bat speed, if we're worried about, say, Ty France's exit velocity, his barrel percentage, whatever, that bat speed was key for JP. There's no reason in my mind for it, to not correlate for Ty France as well. This bounce back for Ty, it's going to be glorious.
Yeah, he went on and talked about it a little bit. I think he had a interview or something. I don't know what it was, but he said that he didn't realize how bad his swing was. I think those are his words. He said that his swing and his mechanics were just terrible. And once he went to Driveline and started to break it down bit by bit, he realized what he was doing wrong. So theoretically, he should be able to get the barrel of the ball a little bit more, and he should be able to keep his bat in the zone longer with this new swing. I think that, and he's leaner. He just looks more athletic. So maybe, you know what? Maybe we'll see some stolen bags out of Ty this year.
You stop it right now.
Thoughts? But, he is the slowest guy on the team. So I'd like to see him not be.
It could be a step in the right direction for Ty if he's looking a little bit more lean, a little bit more athletic. Maybe he won't be the slowest guy. His 2023 sprint speed percentile was 7. Pretty blue, right? And looking at some of his other 2023 percentiles, he was 18th or the 18th percentile in average exit velocity. It's not very good for a guy that you want to be. If he's not a big power guy, he's not. We never thought Ty France was going to be a 30 homer guy. more closer to like the 25 range. But last year with only 12, it's a big step down from his previous year. I think it was 20 or 21. And his average exit velocity didn't drop that much from 2022 to 2023. He was the 24th percentile in 2022. But just knowing that what we saw out of JP and what we saw the big jump happen for him, I can't, like, I don't know. It's another thing when I'm saying I can't imagine. It doesn't exist outside my thought process here of like Ty France having a more prolific offensive approach was going to be one of the best Mariners additions this offseason that I think a lot of people can agree with, because it was a big piece that we were missing from the 2023 team was his presence at the plate in from 2022 and years past. So if he's back to even just, I mean, 2022 was good, but we're mainly looking at like the first half of that year. If he's close to that, dude's going to be an all-star again.
I think that I go back to his 2023 season and I look mainly, I talked about this in the video that I did on him a couple weeks ago now, his spray chart. He was not using the whole field like he had in the past. And I think that when you're Ty France, you're not a first baseman who's going to crush 30 home runs. So you need to be able to use the whole ballpark. Because if you're not, you're a very one-dimensional player. He was definitely trying to hit home runs last year. Like, he realized that his power was gone. And he was trying to hit home runs. That's why his fly ball percentage went up in 2023. He wasn't hitting the ball to the right side, which, I mean, I remember I think it was opening night. Yeah, it was opening night off of Karen check.
Yeah, the little opposite field homer that barely squeaked out, but it was a pretty prototypical Ty France home run. It looked like, for just kind of like, oh, he got to that ball and he managed to hit it out. Like Ty's there. It's just over the full length of the season, never really kind of continued that trajectory, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that getting into spring training, he's looking like someone who's going to be back to, like you said, early 2022 Ty France. And if he can do that while hitting, I don't know, probably 6th or 7th in this lineup, I think that you're going to be in a really good spot for having 1 through 9, your lineup be A, longer, and B, just offensively better all around. I think that adding early 2022 Ty France would mean the world to this team. For spring training, since we're talking about spring training, what have you heard, Joe, around the Twitter sphere or the X sphere?
I am very much so in the camp that I don't want to call it X. So I usually just refer to it as Twitter, against my lack of professionalism, or not against, with my lack of professionalism, I guess.
Yeah, we're not professional. I think that's why you guys like us, is because we're very unprofessional.
Wait, they like us?
Well, you guys pretend to like us.
Yeah, it's never mind. I'm not going to continue with that. I would say the thing that has stood out to me the most, I think Logan on KJR, I think that's where it was, mentioned 2 things. Bryce Miller hit 98 in a pen. So if he's able to kind of stick around the higher 90s, I don't want to say that we're expecting Miller to be in the high 90s every single outing, but that was something that we saw him struggle with, was having the stamina to continue to stay in the mid to upper 90s. I wouldn't say we ever really saw Bryce Miller touch 97, 98 pretty consistently. Like, he was more of like in the 93 to 95s, maybe in his better outings sitting at like 96. If he can consistently be there, that's going to be huge. And in that same radio spot, I think it was the same one. I could be wrong, but mentioned that the most impressive or just like eye-opening bullpen was from Carlos Vargas, guy that we acquired in the offseason from the Geno trade from the Diamondbacks. If that's a guy that they can kind of tune in his stuff, because the big problem with him is his control. Like, he just has not been able to locate at the big league level. But we've known ever since we acquired him, he's a flamethrower with the potential to have a devastating breaking ball of a slider of some sort. It's pumping 101. Like, this could just be what we all wanted Prelander to be, or, another addition to the Munoz, Brash, Santos 3-headed monster. Now we're making like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse bullpen, if we want to go that route. Just get real dark here for a second. Like, Carlos Vargas, if he is able to locate, it's one of those things, like, this is what spring training is all about, is like figuring out what works for these guys and like having them build upon it. He might not break camp with the team, but if he's, say in Arkansas where Prelander was last year, and he's not walking nearly as many guys as Prelander was, we could see him get called up really fast. Like, that's the thing that I most, I think, curious about, because also with last year, thinking about like things that were, I think, jumping off the page at us when Prelander was facing the Padres, and he like made Tatis and he made Tatis and Machado look pretty silly. I'm pretty sure in that outing. And so it's like, sure, that was just spring training, didn't really amount to anything. But like, if you can see something like that again out of Vargas and like have it potentially develop into more, I think that's a very, very exciting thing. But for you, what have you kind of, what have you latched onto?
I heard rumors that Emerson Hancock has looked really, really good. I think it was Divish that said it. He's looked really good this spring, and as the Mariners' sixth starter, and obviously first guy up, if somebody gets injured, I think that's a really good sign for the Mariners, because when they traded Anthony DeSclafani, they kind of they hurt their starting pitching depth. Obviously, Austin Voth's still around and whatnot, but Emerson Hancock is the guy that I look to who has the most potential. Obviously was a top 5 prospect for the Mariners for a while, but prospect fatigue and just some struggles for Hancock himself. But he wasn't terrible, in my opinion, when he came up in 2023. I think that's a big one. Emerson Hancock looking like the old Emerson Hancock. I think that, and we didn't talk about this actually before we started the podcast, so sorry about that. I just thought of it. Cal Raleigh talking about like being with one team his whole career. Did you hear about
I
that?
did see that little tidbit of like, it's exciting to think about being like on one team for your entire career or whatever. I mean, extend the man now. Like, I don't know. I mean, I would have done it yesterday if I was the front office and had the money to do it. It's probably them trying to figure out their payroll situations in the years coming. But with Ray off the books in a couple, like, for the next year or 2 years, if I'm assuming Haniger will probably be on it for next year, but that's neither here nor there because it's a player option, right? For
I
Mitch.
think so.
So
Yeah.
there's no
And
way
he's taking it unless he goes crazy this year.
yeah, and then somehow gets like he plays himself into a better situation. Sure. I don't know. I think Cal is a guy that you want as a Mariner for life. And sure, people are like, oh, we've got Harry Ford. Like, what are we gonna do with Harry Ford? Well, Cal can just DH when the time comes. You know, eventually all the catching he's doing is gonna catch up to him. Catch up. No? All right. Sorry.
I prefer mustard.
Oh, mustard or ketchup. No SpongeBob references. Got it.
Anyway.
So Mitch Garver will be gone by that point when Harry Ford can really kind of like take over the catching mantle, I'd say, and then Cal can slide to DH. And I'd say you'd probably trust Cal to be like the second catcher. I don't want to say the backup, but like he'd be the primary, but he just fits better as a DH role potentially if you still keep Harry Ford as your catcher. There's a little bit of time for that to develop. Like, we're not really thinking about that for this season. That's more of like a 2025, 2026 conversation, but there's room for it. And Harry Ford, he could move out of the infield and Cal could still be catcher. And then once Garver's fully gone after the 2026 season, because there's an option there, that's probably when you have that conversation of like, okay, do we bring Harry Ford back to catching? Like, do we go out and sign somebody else, or do we, put our chips in a different basket? Like, I don't know. But Cal is a guy, I think when we talked about it last year, like, guys, we need to extend right now. Our pick was Ty France, LOL. A bad year for that to happen. So I don't want to say Cal Raleigh's my pick right now and, the bad fortune to go that way, knock on wood. But he just makes so much sense to be a Mariner for life if we can get him here.
If you would have told me at the end of last season that 6 months from then, Cal Raleigh was going to be saying that he wanted to be a Mariner for life, would have said nope.
Don't believe you.
No, he doesn't. I don't believe you but I think that, and this goes a long way, like what we talked about last podcast with Scott Service, keeping Cal updated. When there's a relationship built between the front office and the players, or even, the coaching staff and the players, that's important to a player. And that's why Mitch Haniger loves it in Seattle. He knows everyone. He's comfortable there. There's a reason why you see a lot of players come back to Seattle. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of issues with Mariners ownership, Mariners front office, what have you. But when it comes to, and maybe it's just because we're more tuned in, when it comes to players coming back in some sort of role, I feel like the Mariners do it better than anyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, we just saw Danny Farquhar come back. Seth Mejias Breen, I think is how you say his name, is like the coach of the Nuts. Maybe
I think he's down. He might be in Everett, but he's
Yeah.
in the minor league coaching system. I mean, Tom
Mhm.
Wilhelmsen was there. It's not like officially a thing for him yet, but I think it was
Yeah.
more of like a feeling out situation. I mean, Ichiro's still in and around the ball club a ton. A guy that I think we would have wanted to see maybe come back in some capacity was Nelson Cruz. That one didn't
Mhm.
really happen, so maybe
Where did he go?
Is- I
He's
think
coaching somewhere.
yeah, I think I don't want to commit to saying the Dodgers.
I agree. I think it's the Dodgers. It's either the Dodgers or the Padres. I think. But yeah, while you look that up,
I don't.
Mike Cameron is a guy who's been around a lot around the ball club. Sam Tuivailala came back. There's just a lot of former players that just come back to this organization for whatever reason, and it's really cool to see that they're able to extend their that reach of the front office of this team and bring back a lot of iconic faces. Obviously, Edgar was the hitting coach for a while as well, so I think that, and I think Griffey part owner of the Sounders now or something? I don't remember.
That's a great question.
Did you find where Nelson Cruz went to coach?
He's an advisor for the Dodgers.
Oh, okay.
Seattle
it.
sports legend Ken Griffey Jr. and wife Melissa decision to join the Sounders was a family one in 2020.
I'm a genius.
Look at you.
Thank you so much. But yeah, I think that signing Cal to an extension, I'm not sure what it would look like, and we don't need to delve into that right now, but you got to start locking some of these guys up. Obviously, Julio got locked up. Obviously, Luis Castillo got locked up, but Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, and Cal Raleigh are the three that I think you really need to look at right now this season as to what kind of contract you can get them on. Because if I don't foresee a world where George Kirby signs an extension before it's like his final year. I don't think it happens. Logan, on the other hand, has talked about how he wants to be a Mariner for life.
Mm-hmm.
And now so has his best friend, Cal. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there, and maybe if they can get the vibes going in there, they can be like, hey, we all want to be Mariners for life.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's a pretty tight-knit group with a lot of the core guys.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can get that, and obviously the Mariners had signed JP to an extension as well. I think that this is the time, with so much of the core in on the team right now, it'd be a good time to start extending these guys. Just finishing up here with the spring training stuff. Luis Urias it's a shoulder, right? It's
Yeah.
a shoulder with that.
Sore shoulder, just not really throwing across the diamond at this point in time, which is then allowing the Matt Chapman drum to get pounded a bit more, which is it's kind of ironic timing a little bit, but yeah, Luis Urias didn't have a great Mexican Winter League, which was other information that kind of I wouldn't say it like surfaced at the wrong time, but it was kind of like another ironic situation where it's like, oh, he's got a sore shoulder and we're worried about his, how he's going to look next year. And we go and look at his stats over the winter and they were pretty abysmal.
Yeah. I found it funny that people just started harping on that. That's been known now for months.
Yeah, it's been out there. It's just like it was something that I think just
one person posted on Twitter and they were like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, it just gets brought into the public eye, and it's like, oh lord, because if you'd been looking at Urias's like winter minor league whatever page on Reference, you'd have seen it. Not to say that I saw it before that. I had no idea. I didn't look.
I didn't either.
But like it's been there.
Yeah, I truly do not care.
Sure.
Like
it doesn't impact your opinion about Luis Urias.
Not at all.
Sure.
Let's see. One more thing about spring training, then we can move on here. Joe.
Uh-huh.
The jerseys are bad.
Okay.
But Joe, the pants.
The
pants are really bad.
I don't know if it's MLB's attempt to cater to, a different audience this time around with the pants. If they're a little bit see-through, there's an audience out there that will enjoy it.
Well, Cal lost a lot of weight. His dumper's kind of gone now.
But I'm telling you, he at the time of him not being big dumper anymore, when you were talking about that, he was probably just cutting. Now is the time to get back to bulking. He's back at camp. It's time for him to really get back into full big dumper form. And those Fanatic pants,
dude,
I'm a big fit. No, they're awful. Absolutely terrible. It's like it is worse than our high school uniform.
Oh, by far.
It's so bad.
Our high school uniform was actually kind of nice.
No, they're decent. And it's just
they were decent.
This is, I think Mike Cameron responded to Ty Dane Gonzalez's tweet about like the Michael Chavis jersey that came out.
Dude.
Oh, it's so bad, but it's like he said, like Mike Cameron said, it was like a $15 billion company. Like, of course, like it's this industry that's huge, and yet we're putting out these uniforms. It's so frustrating because you want to think that like, oh yeah, they have what's like best in mind. Like with I feel like Nike's not a bad place to go as far as like a jersey or equipment thing. Like I'd say Nike's a pretty it's a brand that's out there that you're like, yeah, I can see where they're going with that. And then they just completely messed it up. They just dropped the ball more so than I think anybody could have ever imagined.
I mean, they already messed up the jerseys last year too. They were like, yeah, low or like sponsorships on the jerseys. No. What are we, NASCAR drivers?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where that's going. I mean, NBA's had it for a while, so it's like I'm okay with a single sponsor on a sleeve.
Yeah, so Cal, how do you feel about today's game? Well, first off, I'd like to thank this Cheerios baseball bat for really hitting that ball good for me.
Colton, I know we're not excited about the jerseys, but there was a little Reddit thread that got posted to Mariners Twitter. And you are very, very excited about this. So I'm gonna let you take the reins here for a second. This is you. Have your moment.
Guys, Mariners commercials are back, baby.
Hopefully.
Yeah. What do you mean? There's no shot. There's no world where the starting pitching rotation is standing in a dump truck.
What do you mean? That's just so happenstance. It'll just be like the supernatural thing. Yeah. No, it's a commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the junk in the trunk for the pitchers. Then, of course, you have Big Dumper. You got to make a play on that. I'm interested to see what kind of commercials they do this year. Like, obviously, it's been since 2019, maybe even 2018, since they've done commercials for the Mariners. And I'm looking forward to it, man. Like, if I have to go back, there are times where I will go on YouTube and just watch all the old Mariners commercials.
Isn't there a playlist of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they're good. I mean, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I feel like Larry Bernandez is just that's the one that sticks with me the most. I don't know why. It's not even like from like my earliest childhood situation, but like I just think that one's super funny. Like I enjoy that one. That one will get a chuckle out of me every single time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very iconic. I think that I really liked the Nelson Cruz ones, like his auto repair or his glass repair because he was breaking all the windows.
Yeah.
I liked they were throwing stuff up to Robinson Cano and who was it? I think it was Eric Wedge was in the commercial.
Yeah,
I was like, hit it.
He was in the Larry Bernandez one.
Yeah, true. Maybe it wasn't Eric Wedge. Anyway, he was like, hit it to this spot, hit it this spot. And Robbie's hitting it exactly where he's telling him to. And no, it was Lloyd McClendon. And Lloyd goes, yeah, now hit the guy putting flyers on my car. And then Cano hits it and almost hits the guy putting flyers. It's so funny. So I'm looking forward to it. Maybe we talked about this a little beforehand. I'll make a video about my top 5 Mariners commercials of all time. Thoughts?
I mean, I'm all for it. As long as Bernandez is in there, or even just an honorable mention for me in the spirit of me, I'll take it. No shot. Okay.
And I'll also do a little review of the commercials because why not? Why not? We need content right now until the game starts. There's really nothing. We can't really see a whole lot. So,
Yeah.
But you know what we did see a lot of, Joe?
What's that?
Is Levi Stout in the major leagues last year? He wasn't very good. Okay, but he's back with the Mariners now. He had been DFA'd by the Reds, right?
The Reds. He went in the Castillo trade.
Right, and then Mariners picked him back up and DFA'd Kanan Smith and Jigba. So that was a very short-lived, the two brothers in Seattle. But Levi Stout's probably your number 7 now. So I was talking about like Anthony DeSclafani kind of being that guy. Adding Levi Stout to the mix definitely gives you more depth should somebody get hurt, and hopefully the Mariners can turn him around. Because when he was with the Mariners, he was pretty good. I think that he was one of their better pitching prospects, which is obviously, sending him to Cincinnati in that trade. Obviously, the prize was no Elvie Marte, like no doubt. That was the prize of that trade for the Reds. But Levi Stout, they definitely had some hope for him, and it just didn't work out for him.
It's something that he mentioned upon coming back of like, I hope that there's like some, like, not I hope. He's looking forward to the stability the familiarity and also like being able to he knows what the pitching lab, the pitching, just the coaching staff in general has done for other pitchers within the organization. He's looking forward to coming back to that, he said, I'm pretty sure. And so, whether he's ahead of Austin Voth, I'd say he probably is, just as far as like a longer like starting pitching replacement should injury or whatever happen. Maybe they call upon him first instead of Emerson Hancock if they want Hancock to develop more. Maybe there's like, yeah, Levi Stout, he's a bit more like we've kind of seen enough out of him versus like they think they may be able to develop Hancock a little bit more. I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, it is more starting pitching depth that I think people will be happy that the Mariners have at the end of the day.
And in terms of additions being made to this ball club, both Justin Hollander and Jerry Dipoto went on the radio this week and talked about that. First and foremost, we'll talk about Jerry Dipoto here, who said that in terms of big additions, they're probably done. They're not going to see a big, like, major addition to this team. And that is indirectly talking about Matt Chapman, obviously.
Probably.
Because that's the one where everyone's been talking about recently. And we're, 2 days away from games, and half of the big free agents are still out there. It's so stupid.
The reigning NL Cy Young
Mm-hmm.
is unsigned. That's crazy.
Yeah. Baseball has a problem. So then that's it. That's the problem.
It's a Scott Boras problem, personally.
That's true. That's true. I think that we all kind of knew that. We all knew that there wasn't going to be like any more big additions, in my opinion. With that being said, Justin Hollander did say he wasn't, quote, turning his phone off, and he still wanted to find ways to help this team. Jerry said that it's probably going to be more on the margins, so on a 40-man roster, guys towards the end of the 40-man roster. Levi Stout's a good example.
Yeah.
Like, he helps this team, but he's not necessarily going to change the way this team looks. The team that you see right now, the 26-man, probably going to stay pretty close to what it is right now. I could see changes happening on the bench, or maybe to the bullpen, but we don't know how it's set up as it is. There's still, like we talked about before, a few battles in camp, but I think that any big addition, like they said, is off the table. Maybe a small addition here or there.
That's the one thing with like they're talking about this big addition, and like I think it was an article by Daniel Kramer, talking about like what it would take for Matt Chapman to be a Seattle Mariners. Like it would have to be this huge discount to what he was originally seeking this offseason, and then the numbers being thrown out are like 3 years 36 million. And I think that's what you asked me about last time, and I just kind of laughed at you because it seems so unrealistic. Like it's not. There's no way Matt Chapman's gonna sign for 36 when other teams out there like the Giants and even going back to Toronto or maybe like Chicago, like there seems like there's better fits out there for him than the Mariners. And if they're also just gonna offer him 336, I feel like he'd take those as opposed to Seattle, just because the park maybe or playing time that you'll see. Like I don't know. It's just it doesn't seem like a huge fit for the small money that he'd be receiving compared to what he wanted. And that I think speaks to like Jerry's comments on that radio show of just like not a high profile thing. It's like, yeah, okay, like you're saying, that's Matt Chapman basically. And Hollander saying he doesn't want to like shut himself out from making the team better. Would Matt Chapman make the team better with maybe figuring out Luis Urias' arms, like his shoulders sore? Like, sure, there's opportunity. I'm not going to say that Matt Chapman, for the right price, would make this team better to some extent, but for what's realistic, I can't see 3 years, 36 million for Matt Chapman. It's not going to happen. And if it does, this is another, I'll get a Dylan Cease tattoo. I'll get a Matt Chapman tattoo. Okay. I'll get 3/36 somewhere on my body if he signs 3 years, 36 million with the Seattle Mariners. I'll do it. It's just because I'm so confident that it's not going to happen.
I think that there's more likelihood that happens than the Cease trade ever happening.
Yeah, that was the yapper that I was gonna get.
Oh yeah. This one has a little a
little bit more life. I don't think so.
I found it interesting that they had discussed it as late as this month.
Yeah, it's a recent thing. It's like it's something maybe not even recent, but like it's a continued conversation.
Mm-hmm. So again, I don't foresee it happening. It just doesn't make sense in my opinion unless we find out like the Urias is going to have surgery and it's going to be out. You know what I mean? Or something to that extent. And even then, you probably just roll with Josh Rojas over there. Josh Rojas and Dylan Moore at third base and call it,
Mm-hmm.
as for the rest of that radio spot, there wasn't really a whole lot more to talk about. Dipoto did mention, or no, it was Hollander that mentioned. One of them mentioned, all right, one of them mentioned that like they never even went past the line of scrimmage when it came to trades for Gilbert, Castillo, or Kirby. He said it just wasn't going to happen. They had discussed, the other members of the starting staff, but he just never said that they never came close to the asking price they wanted. So in the end, it's good, in my opinion. At the beginning of this offseason, I said you have to trade one of Miller or Wu. You have to. And now here we are sitting here on February 22nd, and I think that it's a good thing that they didn't. 2 days from now, we are going to see the Mariners and White Sox suit up for an actual baseball game. We are this close to seeing the Mariners back in action. And if you guys are heading down to Peoria, down to spring training, go ahead and check out this video on the screen right now, a guide to spring training down in Arizona. We appreciate you guys watching episode 63 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online, the Rob Whalen episode. And go Mariners.